Thank you for giving me the privilege of your company and joining me on the Sutherland Report as I continue with my political series where I am interviewing a number of the candidates for Reform UK. What is incredibly exciting is when us people that are slightly older in the tooth are meeting incredible young people, and there we can have a conversation about politics, and there is lots of synergy, and we come together, and the age group has disappeared, and that is what is always thrilling. So I'm going to bring on Luca Lorenzo, and we will talk about what his role is within Reform UK. Luca, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an utter delight to meet you via the digital medium. We had a wonderful conversation the other day, so I greatly appreciate that. And it's also inspiring to meet other young people. And so thank you very much, sir, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mark. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on.
Great, brilliant. Well, let's do what I normally do. We go through a few maps, and it allows you to give us a wonderful geography lesson. I've got one that I've been using. So could you place us where you are roughly?
Yes, I'd say in between Leeds and Sheffield is the best point.
Brilliant. And then I'm going to bring back this, which is the red pin on Barnsley, and then to show you the Barnsley area. And that is where it is, just above the sort of middle of the country. So, Luca, could you please describe to me what your role is within the Barnsley area for Reform UK, sir?
Yes, so I'm the Barnsley Campaign Manager for Reform UK. That's managing both Barnsley North and South, the candidates, media, events going on, volunteers. It's a big task, but I'm very pleased to be appointed and working on that at the minute.
Brilliant. So, Luca, we will show the candidates in a little while. So you've got Bob Lomas of Barnsley North, and you've got David White of Barnsley South. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring those pictures up, and then we will bring them back up later. So this is dear Bob in Barnsley North, and this is dear David in Barnsley South. And what is thrilling is that there is a bit of an age gap between you and them, and I'm not being rude to Bob and David. What it is to actually affirm you and rejoice in the fact that a young person is interested in what's happening to their country and what's going on. So without putting words in your mouth, Luca, why are you the Barnsley coordinator for Reform? What has brought you to this point?
I think it's best starting off with how I got into Reform to build a bit of a picture of how it all panned out. So I hadn't really heard of Reform fully before the start of the year, so to say. I attended the Doncaster rally, which Richard Tice and other members were speaking, and I really enjoyed what they were saying. And that's pretty much the common sense policies. So I reached out to David White, who's actually the South Yorkshire organiser and Barnsley South candidate, just asking where I can play my part, because I really like what they're saying and I feel strongly about it, and I think it's the best thing for all of us. I ended up standing in the local election in Barnsley in a ward, and David's obviously liked what I was doing, my presence, and maybe it's to do with being a young person as well and having that difference, show young people that, hey, we can be involved, he's involved, come on, join us. So David's really taken me under his wing. He's trusted me with the big task of managing Barnsley for both candidates, and I'm very pleased about it, and I'm very happy that I've got this opportunity to do some good, hopefully.
Brilliant. How old are you, Luca, if I may be so rude to ask?
21. 21.
Brilliant. All credit to you, sir. Thank you. So you went to the Doncaster meeting.
Yeah.
What are in the constituency, in your locality where you live?
Yeah.
What are the conversations that are going on? What are people concerned about?
I think the two priorities, what we're hearing on the doorstep at the minute, is illegal immigration and the NHS. There's obviously other points to that, the cost of living and such, but I would say immigration is the one on people's minds the most. I wouldn't say we're experiencing it in Barnsley fully yet, but it's on people's minds and it is a worry to people. And we're just trying to talk to them about that. Even if they don't agree with reform, they're not going to vote. We're just making them aware of the statistics, what reform's going to do, and just talking to people. Even if we don't convert them, we've talked to them and they know about us. That's all we can do.
The local MP in the area, what party are they from? What flavour are they?
Yeah, so at the minute, it's the two MPs in Barnsley. It's Barnsley Central and Barnsley East. Now, the boundaries have changed, and that's why it's North and South. But both MPs are Labour. So Barnsley used to be and still is a Labour stronghold. So that has been the issue in the local elections. But everywhere we stood in them elections, Reform pretty much came second. So I think it's a good indication of where we're going, where we've come from, and hopefully in the general election, Reform's got a really good chance. Because in 2019, in them elections, when we were called the Brexit Party, we came second in both Barnsley areas. And we're hoping after 5 years of what people seen from the Conservative Party, that votes may shift, opinions will have shifted. I think that's a definite. And the only party for them to come to is Reform. So we're hoping we can really go for it in the short 5 weeks that we've got.
In the fact that you've got two Labour MPs, as you said, the boundaries have changed as it's gone to north and south instead of east and west, so to speak. Would you describe, and after 2019, what percentage of people do you think actually voted out to leave the European Union? Do you have any idea?
No, not a statistic, but when some of our candidates were with the Brexit Party, some of our volunteers were, and I've heard from them directly that people in Barnsley did want to leave the EU, and that was also based on illegal immigration. Because one of the driving factors for Brexit, as most people know, was taking back control of our borders. And I think in Barnsley, what I can speak of, because I'm here, is immigration is a key factor. And that did run, evidently, through the Brexit Party in Barnsley.
Right. So when you're talking about the NHS, what are the concerns that people got? Are they able to get an appointment at GP surgeries? Go. You tell me what's going on.
So from personal experience, when I've tried to sort things for me, family, other people, we can't get a GP appointment. We ring up at the time, I think it's 8 o'clock we ring up. We can't get through. Dentists fully booked, maybe a year plus. So if it's anything urgent, we're stuck. So GP appointments, dentists, it's ridiculous. People just can't get sorted for these important issues. What's really affecting them? It should be a basic thing that you can ring up and you can get in same day. And unfortunately, you could be having an appointment for a month later. And that's really a serious issue.
Do you remember if that's suddenly taken a turn for the worst? Has that taken a turn for the worst over the last few years? Or have people, or has it just been a graduate thing and suddenly it's hit the buffers? What are your thoughts?
I think nationally with the NHS, it has got worse over these couple of years. I don't want to keep going back to illegal immigration too much, but I've heard from personal friends that work in, let's say, the dentists. So they work there, and the immigrants come in, they get the free dental care, and it could be anything, fixing everything, and they get it for free. And I just think that's something that, as British taxpayers, we should be getting an advantage on that. And it doesn't sit right with me. I know it don't with many other people. It's just making them aware of what really is going on, because I just find it, somebody can come in, get it free when other people are on waiting lists. So, and they're not. It's just a bit tricky.
Well, one of the wonderful things about the area where you live in is that people are no nonsense. And they do say it how it is.
Yeah,
which is one of the beauties of your area, and frankly many other areas outside London. I'll just say that. So NHS, GPs, and you're then saying the infrastructure of our nation. What about, is there enough police on the ground? What are crime rates like at the moment?
We do see, quite recently, there's been a lot of crime reports, break-ins, antisocial behaviour. It's something that needs to be cracked down on. But the issue is, we're finding police on the streets. There's hardly any presence of police on the streets. Now, we could speak to family members who remember the days that there'd be a local policeman in the area always patrolling and keeping the peace, and having that contact with the youth or with anyone. So they've got that presence there with them. That's disappeared almost completely. I've rarely seen any police going around regularly, especially in the area where I live. And I think you bring that police presence back, the crime rate, the antisocial behaviour will drop dramatically, because people know there's police everywhere. It's something that's really, really lacking, not just in Barnsley, over the country, I assume. But it's definitely a presence that's disappeared, quite sadly as well.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by saying, when I'm speaking to other candidates, all these subjects are coming up, and I'm not putting words in people's mouths, because we are getting a consensus across the country, and people know. That's why they're rather frustrated. Excuse me. What about youth work provision, sports centres, swimming pools, stuff for young people to do, or people to do in the constituency? And of course, you know as well as I do that people are fitter, then that has less drain on the NHS. What about those kind of resources as well?
Yeah, I think youth involvement, youth buildings, just so they can meet with other people, really, and so they're not tempted. I'm not saying that anyone is. It's just a small minority that give people that bit of bad reputation, if you understand. So I think bringing these kind of buildings back where you can go, there's game centres, etc., just for young people, the younger category. I think that's quite important. In Barnsley, I believe there is one being built. I know there's the facilities to build some from derelict buildings. I think it's a good initiative that should be taken on, because young people are the future. That's a fact. And if we look after our young people, they'll return the favour, they'll look after everybody else. It's just a simple, you give something, you get something back. And I think we need to prioritise young people as well.
What is the makeup of the constituency in regard to the amount of urban, towns, farmlands, and how do people earn a living? What's the jobs, industry, etc.? Give us a bit of background, Luca.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of green space in Barnsley. I live just on near enough the outskirts of Barnsley, and we're surrounded by lots of farmland, so we're pretty privileged with that. I know there's a couple of other areas out just on the borders of Barnsley, like we are, some beautiful farmland. But that's Yorkshire as well. It's a lovely place to be. So yeah, there's a lot of work in Barnsley. There's a new glasswork shopping centre open. That's bringing loads of jobs, which includes a cinema. It's a nice place to be. It really is. It just needs keeping fresh, keeping up to date, and keeping it clean. And that is a priority, to make Barnsley look and appeal to everybody else who visits, because it really is a nice place. It really is.
How do people feel about the local council? Again, I don't know the political makeup of the local council, and again, there is a theme, and that's why I'm asking these questions. Do they feel that people are getting value for money? Do they feel that the council are representing them? What about, is there an issue with transport links? Because in rural communities, that is a huge issue.
Yes. The Barnsley Council, the councillors are nearly all Labour. And that is an issue for representing people. Obviously, they're going to vote, they voted Labour in, the people, but there's nothing to show for it, really. I stood in the local elections. I didn't see campaigning from other parties, certainly not the Conservatives, but I didn't see it. And I think that's a representation of where are they? If you understand what I mean, and why are people voting this party in when there's nothing to show for it? But it's clear that they vote Labour, whatever the issue, and that's what we're trying to turn people away from and say, we've got an alternative, we've got a plan, we will stick to it, and all our candidates were from that area, and that is a really important thing. So they know the community. They know what it's like to live there and what the issues are in that area, and that's important.
When you were standing as a councillor, how did people treat you? Were they quite surprised how young you were, the fact that you were out and about and meeting people? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it were a great thing for me personally to do that. I felt really good about doing it, getting up off my backside and saying, if we can make a change, that's fantastic. But the presence of reform on the actual leaflet just indicates that we are there. But personally, yeah, as a young person doing something like that, I had a lot of comments saying, well done. You know, it's great to see young people getting involved, and I think we will come on to the younger people in politics shortly. But I got some great reception. Obviously, you've them people that, because of the Labour, you know, you'll get them comments. But on the whole, it were really good. I covered in the local elections in the ward I stood 98% of the ward. So that were a really good thing to do in the short space that I had. And I came second as well, behind Labour, obviously. But it just shows that we can do it, and we're here to stay.
Well, congratulations on that, because that is no mean task. How long did you have to canvass for that?
I think a month.
Wow.
It were quite short notice for a couple of candidates, but we rose to the task. I know it were a great group of candidates that we had, all chipping in where we could with each other's campaigns, working through the week, the evenings, the weekends, and we had some great volunteers as well who came to help us. We had some big groups, and without volunteers, we're nothing. Volunteers are key, and they have to have respect. It don't matter what political party you come from. Volunteers are really there to, you know, they're there to help, and they should be treated with the utmost respect. And for me, the volunteers what came, I really appreciated the help, because we could not have completed the area without them. It'd have been too big a task.
Before we move on to the really, really important subject of getting young people involved, could you just tell us how people can reach you, where you are on social media, etc., and just plug that right now?
Yeah. So first of all, Facebook. It's called Reform UK Barnsley. David White actually runs that page, so you can keep up to date with all the information going in and out of Barnsley that way. We have an Instagram account, Reform Barnsley. That's run by me personally. We share videos on there, photos of campaign days and events. And we've just set up the Reform Barnsley TikTok as well, and that's predominantly candidate videos. So we've got an active presence on social media, but I think that's key. And I set up the Instagram and TikToks to reach the younger people, because they are young people platforms. And hopefully by doing that, they can see that, hey, it's not just Labour, it's not just the Conservatives, there is an option, so let's look into it. And that's what hopefully we will achieve over these next couple of weeks.
And hopefully in that social media, you're then able to inform them. They may be Conservative by name, but they may not actually be Conservative in the policies that they push forward.
Yeah.
And that leads me on to the fact that why, and it's fantastic, you were 21, why do you want to see young people involved? Do they feel that there is no access for them? Do they feel disaffected by it? Are they actually wanting to vote? I know there's a number of questions there. Give us an overview of the flavour of that.
So I'm very passionate about young people being involved in politics because I'm obviously a young person myself. I've looked into in Barnsley, we have Barnsley College, sixth form university. So there's a lot of students. And 30% of Barnsley students are over the age of 18, which is voting age. So there's a big opportunity there for young people to vote. So that's a fact. I just think getting young people involved in politics is so important because it's their future. They're going to grow up in the period that affects their lives with housing and the cost of living. They're going to grow up with a Labour government. And that is worrying for young people, I think, personally, because we don't know what they're going to do for young people. So we're just trying to push the idea of reform. We've been there in the local elections, pushing stuff for young people as well. And I just want to see young people vote, because I've looked into the statistics, and 20% of the voting age people, 18 to 24, don't vote. Sorry, do vote. 20% do vote. So you look at that massive gap, what don't bother. That's a huge proportion of votes just wasted. Now, vote reform, or whatever other party, I just want young people to vote, because that's their voice. By not using a vote, it's a shame. Just make your voice heard. And I plead that to every young person I see. Just play your part. That's all we're asking. Just vote. It's simple.
But ideally, you want them to vote for Reform UK.
Absolutely.
But I understand the ethos. I understand the point that you're making, because you want to, encouraging people to vote is important. Unless my maths is wrong, I think you've just informed me that 80% of 18 to 24-year-olds don't vote.
Yeah.
80%. And as you're aware, in Australia, by law, you have to vote.
Yeah.
So when someone says they've got a mandate, I don't call just having 20% of the vote a mandate.
Yeah, it's a big issue. And like I said, there's 30% of college students in Barnsley that are over the voting age, which is still in education. And if you take that number of 20% of people what do vote and wrap it around the college students, that's a lot of people in Barnsley that either don't vote or just vote Labour. And that theme runs with young people. And you have to ask yourself, why are they not voting? Or why are they voting Labour? And we know Labour's a stronghold in Barnsley, like I've said previously. So that can come down to a number of points with Labour. They've either grown up seeing a Tory government, which has been in power since a lot of young people have been around, So they haven't witnessed a Labour government. They'll think it's a better alternative. The parents have always voted Labour. That's a big factor. If the parents have voted Labour, they've kind of got the influence to vote Labour because they do. That's a theme anyway, really. And the other one, they've tried one party, which is the Conservative Party. So we'll try another, which is obviously Labour. But they're the main parties. And I think people should be looking at the other parties involved. Just because you see them two head to head every week in the House of Commons, it doesn't mean that is the only option that they have. And we're just trying to get young people looking at the options just to make them aware. I think that's very important in today's society, that you really think about your vote, because this next government will be a government that has a massive swing on young people, like I said, with housing, cost of living. It's going to be very interesting to see, to say the least.
And of course, as we've talked about at the beginning, is that it is the infrastructure. You raised the important thing about housing and young people actually being able to afford that, etc., etc. These are real issues. So, as the campaign coordinator, and you are so fired up about this, I can see it. So, what is your plan? Are you going to get into the colleges? Are you going to get into the further education academies to reach 18-year-olds that maybe for the first time are going to be able to vote, plus older? What's your campaign strategy there?
Yeah, so I've been emailing around the college and the universities, just we're wanting to put a presence of reform in our campaign inside the colleges while it's still open before the summer break. So we're trying to sort that. I'll be going into college to speak to people, see if I can arrange something to do with politics, at least, and reform, to see if there's any discussions that could be had with young people, maybe set up a meet or something if they're interested. It's just so important. And like you said, you can see that I'm obviously passionate about it. I think I just can't stress enough when I hear or see young people on social media, I'm not going to vote, or I'm voting Labour because of the Conservatives. There's another option. It's not just the two, and that is what we're trying to say to people, not just younger people, the older people as well, that we're here. Have a look at our contract, it's online, and chances are you'll agree with nearly everything, because it's common sense. That's all it is. And we're just trying to play our part and show our presence. So
we'll come back to the wonderful Bob and David in a minute, which are your candidates there, and we'll put their pictures up and discuss that. And I look forward to, I hope to be able to interview them. But so if you really want to you're getting the reform presence into the colleges, and you would like to get your candidates in there and to have this discussion, because I think, and I'm not being rude, what I'm saying is you want to inform people. You're saying, okay, you're going to vote that way. Why? Can I inform you of what's going on? And you're absolutely right. If you said to the older, your parents, maybe even older, may even have to be older, where you go back to the winter of discontent in 1979 and all this, and before everyone sends in the Exocet missiles going, why are you talking that far back? Well, history is important. History is important to see where people have come from and what's going on. But also it is important, as you said, to call out politicians and what's gone on. And as you quite rightly say, the Conservative Party has been in for a long time. So hustings, are you going to work hard to get some hustings in the colleges?
I'm going to speak to the colleges, see what they can do. I think it's quite tight on what they will allow inside college buildings, but I'm going to see what we can do, because, like I said, they're either not going to vote or they are going to vote. And if they vote, they're going to vote a party. So we're in that bracket. If they don't vote, we want to ask them why they're not going to vote and show them our party. So you know, they are or they aren't. And but we're going to see what we can do. See if we can arrange something. Maybe one of them politics rooms sorted out, and just go around and answering people's questions from candidates, maybe, or myself, or just showing them the reform policies, maybe even putting some leaflets up.
If they have a debating society, if they're studying politics and government and all the rest, then I think that's a wonderful, you know, go in and talk to them, because you can bring in the real thing. This is what's going on. It's not pretend. So no, brilliant. What other concerns do you think your constituents are then bringing to you? We've talked about NHS, we're talking about infrastructure, and yes, it's strain on by immigration. You've said that the Barnsley area is a mix of more of, you know, towns, cities, and then wonderful farmland. How, coming to farmers, and it's really important in regard to farm security, how do farmers feel about what they're having to deal with? And they are some of the most hardworking people in this country, 24/7. What are the thoughts in regard to the farming community?
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of farmers because I went to farming college for 3 years. So I've got the degree, so to speak, in it. And I know a lot of farmers, so I know what they think. Most of them I spoke to have voted Conservative because just they don't like the direction of Labour, so they voted them as the best option. The issue that farmers are having is red tape. They can't do this, they can't do that. I don't know if you've watched Clarkson's Farm, but you can get a sense of the influence and power that the government has. We have issues with fertiliser where you can't spray this, you can't spray that. They've banned this, so you're in a pickle. There's a lot of situations where you can and can't do it, and you're being dictated on your own farm by policies. And that, for a lot of farmers I've spoke to, is an issue. Because why should you be, it's your farm, it's your land. If you're going to sell the things anyway, manage it yourself without interference, you know, because farmers put so much into our country with the crops, you know, the wheat, you've got the veg as well. We even have the hand picking, you know, the strawberries, you know, come summer. Farming is a massive industry which needs to be looked after, because we see so many shops now with selling strawberries, etc., other fruits, and the place isn't even in England, in the United Kingdom. It's from abroad, Spain, wherever. Now, yes, they'll have that climate, which is an advantage to growing stuff, but we can also grow that things. I go in the summer and we pick strawberries with the family. We grow strawberries, but we're importing it from abroad. Now, when the Conservative government, they use the back British farmers, it doesn't seem like that to me, and a handful of other farmers that I've spoken to before coming on here, that they feel represented. And they always use that slogan, yes, we're backing British farmers. But the with the subsidies issues, like I've said, the fertiliser issues, there's the red tape, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's just a massive thing for them, and they just feel hemmed in. And we've got so much land, but actually we're being controlled on it. So it's a big issue, but we owe everything to us farmers, absolutely everything.
No, thank you for that. And a very interesting comment you made about Jeremy Clarkson's show. Whatever people think of Jeremy Clarkson, he has actually broken down the barriers to teach the urbanites what really does happen and where food really comes from, and the challenges that farmers are having, and it's severe. Are they being asked to lay their land aside to put solar panels and all the green energy push as well? Are they being pressurized to do that?
I haven't heard it from farmers personally, but I have seen the reports that the government, and I don't know what Labour's stance on it because we don't know, frankly, what their stance is on it. But I have seen farmers being asked to sacrifice land for solar panels. Now, this is a big issue because that land, no matter how small, etc., is used to feed people in Britain. Fact. It's being used for cattle, for other types of farmland, diversification in projects. So if you start taking away farmland in Britain and our beautiful countryside, that's going to be a massive issue. There are other places I can think of putting solar panels and our green stuff, if that's what we're going with. With a beautiful countryside, Yorkshire is a beautiful place. And if you start taking away that and dumping rows and rows of solar panels on it, it's going to ruin the place. It really is, just for the look of it alone.
And again, the big question is whether it generates enough electricity for the whole of the UK needs. And that is a real issue and an important subject. Let's get to your, Luca, thank you. Let's get to your candidates. So if I bring up Bob's picture, and Bob Lomas, and Bob is standing in Barnsley North.
Yeah.
So here is the wonderful Bob, and tell us a little bit about Bob.
Yeah, I've only known him since the local elections, but we work very closely because he's a candidate as well, and I've helped him out. He's a really, really great guy, down to earth, like all his candidates are. He really, really, really wants to do well for Barnsley and put Barnsley people first. So he's stepped up to the mark, and alone that is a great thing to do. He served actually in the Coldstream Guards. He's got a wealth of experience behind him, and he knows what he's talking about. Every time I see him, come to meet him, he's always talking to people on the street. He's stopped them, he's talking to them, he's just about politics as well. No matter what the views, I just wants to talk to him. He's a really friendly guy, and obviously I work closely with him. So, but on a personal level, he's a really good guy, and I know that if he gets in, it'd be great for Barnsley. It really, really would.
And I assume that Bob is local to Barnsley.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in Barnsley, like David is, and like I said, with his local elections, that's key. You're in Barnsley. He knows the area very well, and he sees everything on a day-to-day basis. So what more can you ask for? You know, it's perfect.
No, brilliant. Well, let's come to David, and we'll put this picture up. So this is David White, and David is standing as a candidate in Barnsley South. So tell us a little bit about David.
Yeah. So before I go on to about things about David, he's the reason that I'm where I am. I approached him at the Doncaster rally in, I think it was February, just about how to get involved, and we stayed in touch. And he got in touch about the local elections, about me standing. He's obviously like what I've done with regards to that. And we work really closely on issues of reform, national reform, events. And he's really took me under his wing. And for somebody as young as me entering the world of politics, it's a great thing to have that comfort knowing that somebody is there for you. They're looking out for you all the time. You can call them if you have any issues, and he's been there for me. So I'm really privileged to be representing and working with him. But he's a great guy. Once again, he likes to talk to people, and he talks to people and converts them to reform. And there's not many people who can say after 5 minutes talking to them that they've swapped from being a Conservative voter to reform, or they've not voted and they're voting reform. And that says something about a person's personality, I believe, that they've just got that character about them, that to engage with people, no matter what background. And I think that's a really good feature to have.
Well, I always get excited when I hear that there's wonderful mentoring going on with young people, and I think that is absolutely fantastic. And as I say again, I look forward to interviewing them both, and again to underline that it is fantastic to see these age barriers being dropped, because we all need each other. You know, there are skills that you have that we don't have. There's experience and skills that we have that comes down to life experience that we would love to be able to be in the privilege to be able to share. So that is happening. So thank you. Luca, before we go, is there anything else? Could you just remind us again where people can find you? And is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to point out? We're talking about the strain on facilities, the infrastructure of Barnsley, the heart and the love that you have for Barnsley and the candidates, and wanting to see the best for that, and the fact that when you're on the ground and start to have those conversations, then people will come forward. We've also talked about the fact that you want to get these hustings going and getting to schools, and I really hope that happens. That would be fantastic. So where can people find you again, and is there anything else that we've missed?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook. It's the Reform UK Barnsley Facebook page run by David White. I'm on Facebook as a Reform page. It's Luca Turner Reform UK. We're on Instagram, Reform Barnsley, and we've just joined TikTok, Reform Barnsley again. So if anybody does want to get in touch, volunteer with us, you can find us there. It's a really great thing. On a personal note, I just want to thank Mark. He's been absolutely fantastic with engaging with me. He's a really, really pleasant guy, and I've had the privilege of sitting with him and chatting to him.
That's very, very kind of you. And I haven't paid you at all to say that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, Luke, we'll negotiate. Luca, it's been an absolute privilege and a real joy to sit down and have this conversation. And I thank you for your overall view of what is happening in the area that you live, and you care very passionately about that. And that comes through with a number of all the candidates that I'm talking to. But the other thing is when we're sitting down and engaging young people and we're listening. So Luca, I thank you for spending some time with me. I'm going to press a few buttons and play us out. And as I say, I'll join you on the other side, and then we can say goodbye. But I'd love to be able to do this again, you to give me an update of how things are going. And as I say, I look forward to interviewing Bob and David. So thank you very much for your time, sir. Much appreciated.